All right, our big game of the week was supposed to be bigger, A&M and Alabama. You know about the fireworks during the offseason, Jimbo versus Saban, top recruiting class in the country, supposed to go and do their thing there in Tuscaloosa. Alabama lost last year. They won it back. They're the number one team in the country, and A&M's coming off a couple losses too. So it sounds like just where we were a year ago, but obviously the scene does change. We're going to talk to a couple insiders. Tony Tsoukalas, the managing editor of TideIllustrated.com, joining us here. And, of course, my partner at TexAgs, Olin Buchanan. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, so my understanding, and I didn't see it, is that Nick did not make much of the Jimbo stuff from this offseason in this week's press conference. Jimbo didn't make much of it either. How much of it is in the back of his head, in your opinion, Tony?
I think it's got to be in his head, and I think it's got to be in some of the players' heads. I mean, we talked to Jahmyr Gibbs, and he wasn't on the team last year, but I asked him, how much of it's been talked about in the locker room just from your teammates, and he said it's definitely something for them. So I think it's in the on the minds of everybody in that locker room, whether it be Nick, whether it be the players. They're just they're not going to provide that bulletin board material. So I mean, you could see they were really guarded. I mean, especially Will Anderson, who had said that he was going to address that this week. When he spoke to the media yesterday, it was very much, they were kind of like in the background telling him, hey, tone it down. Don't give Texas A&M anything to work with. So I think that you might not hear about it, but I do think it's going to be a big game.
OB, I'd like to ask you the same question, but A&M's got bigger things to worry about, right?
A&M has so many things to worry about beyond things that were said between their coaches. A&M's got to figure out what they want to do offensively. Who's going to play quarterback? What are you going to do at the left guard position? Are you going to keep rushing three? Maybe that's a good idea if it's Milroe playing quarterback this week. Or it's definitely a bad idea if Bryce is able to play. A&M has more things to worry about within its own team than anything outside that happened in the offseason.
Tony, I asked an Alabama insider buddy of mine earlier, and I'm going to ask you the same question. Do you think if Nick Saban has the chance to run up the score on A&M, or against anybody, really just beyond A&M, but the example that was given to me is Auburn. He could have, but he didn't a couple years back. But he has beaten A&M by quite a bit. So considering all this fire from this offseason, if he can run it up, will he?
I mean, to a certain extent, he usually takes the breaks off around when they get to like the 60s. I don't think he's ever hit 70 points at Alabama. No, I don't think he's going to do that against A&M. First of all, I'm just saying like what his MO is. He usually doesn't want to reach that 70-point mark for whatever reason. So when he's really blowing out an opponent, you can see he kind of like does everything he can not to hit that mark. But if he has an opportunity to drop, 50, 60 points on A&M, I mean, if that happens, I don't necessarily think that that's the way this game is going to get, blown out. He'll probably do it. I don't think he's going to like go out of his way, but I definitely don't think he's going to hold back, especially after what happened this offseason. But I think this A&M defense is okay. It's more so this might be like a 30-7 kind of game, you know what I'm saying? Where I just don't know how A&M is going to get its points. So those don't look as much of a blowout or, running up the score as some of the shootouts might look.
Olin, I've heard from callers today that a couple of them thought that the defense was actually the bigger issue because the offense is what it is. The defense has been disappointing. I feel like on my list of things, defense is, there are some issues, no doubt, but they got to fix the offense, right?
Well, I think the offense is more glaring issues. Anybody could just look at the stats and say, hey, what's going on with the offense? And the answer is nothing. But I think there's more problems with the defense than maybe you see on the surface, at first glance. The A&M is, I think, had 5 sacks in 5 games. That's was a big part of their defense last year was the pass rush. Again, we go back to the last year, A&M was a 4-down lineman team. They supposedly have a lot of really talented defensive linemen, but they're playing, 3. So that's a head scratcher. The secondary is hyped up to be really good, and at times it's made some good plays, but they've also been vulnerable to deep balls. We saw it last week with a 75-yard touchdown pass by Will Rogers. So A&M's had a terrible time getting off the field. I think they're ranked around 90th or something like that nationally in third down defense. So, the offensive issues are very much a concern, and they're easy to look at and point out. But I think the defense may not be as alarming, but there's definitely some issues there that have to get cleaned up too.
Tony, I hate to be Captain Obvious here, but let's play the game of Captain Obvious. What is the game plan to limit the very limited offense that A&M has shown? Is it really about just forcing them to throw and taking out A-Chain?
First of all, it starts with taking out A-Chain. I think both as a passer or for the receiving game and through the running game. I think Alabama did a pretty good job against Bijan Robinson earlier this season, and that's kind of like you look at similar kind of back that can do a lot of things. I think Alabama did a good job of that, but that's something that they struggled with in the past, and I think that's something that they're going to have to do straight off the bat. And then after that, it might depend on the quarterback. I mean, you got one guy that runs a little bit better and one guy that doesn't. Alabama's kind of struggled a little bit against running quarterbacks. KJ Jefferson moved the ball. He's kind of a different quarterback, but that might be something that they have to contain. But in terms of really just like limiting A&M's offense, it starts with A-Chain. If they can do that, that's the biggest way that A&M can hurt Alabama, is maybe getting back to that mismatch problem that's caused Alabama some headaches in the past. I mean, A&M's taken advantage of that with passes to the running backs the last time that they were in Tuscaloosa. I think they had a few of those. So that's something that I would circle. But that being said, I mean, this Alabama defense, I know they didn't have a great third quarter against Arkansas, but other than that, they've been really solid. And I just don't see the way that A&M's really moving the ball that they're going to be able to do too much against this Alabama defense.
Olin, what does A&M do if they do try to take out A-Chain? Where do they turn? Because there really hasn't been a lot of options.
Well, they haven't been able to turn anywhere, really. I mean, the offense has been Devon A-Chain and Anaya Smith, and Anaya Smith's no longer there. Now, Moose Muhammad filled in nicely last week, and I'm sure that that when they throw, he'll be a guy that's going to be instrumental in that passing game along with Evan Stewart. But Evan Stewart has to show that more consistency. Freshmen are often inconsistent, but once you get past Devon A-Chain and with Anais no longer available, you really can't find anybody that's been consistently good. And you have Haynes King is probably the starter, and he does give you, in theory, the running threat from the quarterback position, except that he's been hesitant to run this year. It almost seems like he doesn't want to. So is that going to continue to be an issue? Really, A&M's offense is going to be built around any success that Devon A-Chain has and then trying to throw off play action. And unless A&M comes up with some new wrinkles and some new looks, maybe A-Chain will be used as a wideout in some situations. Then unless they do something like that, I really can't think of a reason to believe that they'll be any significantly more successful offensively.
Tony, so last year I think the game plan was kind of the same. You limit Isaiah Spiller and A-Chain, but A&M came out throwing, right? They threw the ball quite a bit. Zach Calzada actually had a really nice game. What does Bama have to do to avoid what happened last year? And I know the Kyle Field magic isn't going to be traveling, is going to be there in Alabama.
Right. I believe that they didn't allow, I don't think Will Anderson got a sack in that game. But if they're able to kind of limit the pass rush and give their quarterback, whether it's Haynes King or Max Johnson, whoever has the chance to maybe throw the ball, maybe let some plays, develop. I think that's going to be very key. Because if you let this pass rush swallow you up, especially because I think they've done such a great job of stopping the run, that they rank I think second in the nation, holding people to like 2-point-something yards per carry. So if you stop them on the ground and really force these quarterbacks, neither one of them have been convincing into long situations, and you can get pressure on them. I think that's when it gets really ugly. So if they can kind of, it's a big question, right? It's a huge task, but if they can kind of limit Alabama's pass rush, I think that's got to be key number one. And then you can maybe hope for some plays, maybe hit them deep. Kool-Aid McKintry's been someone at cornerback that's really came on strong, but I think maybe you attack them and maybe you can get some plays. It's really kind of hard to figure out how you would break down this Alabama defense, but if you could eliminate the pass rush, that'd be a huge first step.
All right, Olin, I'll ask you something pretty simple. Bryce Young, let's say he doesn't play in this game. How much of a chance does that give A&M? Because they probably will be on what was their first-string quarterback, now their second-string, potentially in Haynes King.
Well, it would have, without a doubt, enhanced A&M's chances. There's a reason one guy's the first team and another guy's the second team. And, oh, by the way, that first teamer just happened to win the Heisman Trophy. So, yeah, that would make your chances better. It's not like Alabama's not going to be able to move the football. A&M run defense has been erratic. I think that's a safe way to put it. Teams have run on them. So if Appalachian State can run on you, I don't know why Alabama wouldn't. But maybe if it's Jalen Milroe, Alabama's offense becomes more one-dimensional. And if that's the case, maybe you feel like you can do more in run defense than you've done before. But I think you're, assuming quite a bit. And then you also have to remember that Jalen Milroe's a heck of a runner. He showed that against Arkansas, and some running quarterbacks have had some success. KJ Jefferson, for instance, he ran the ball pretty well. So, yeah, it would enhance A&M's chances if Milroe's the starting quarterback, but A&M's still going to have to play a much better defensive game than they've played than they've showed this year. And I know they haven't given up a lot of touchdowns and things like that. Like I said, on the surface, it looks like A&M's playing great defense, but they're going to have to play much better to have a chance, even with Jalen Milroe if he's the starter.
Tony, Olin, thank you very much, guys. Appreciate you.